Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my sister demands I babysit her kids during my vacation. I, 27 female, have been planning a much-needed vacation for months. I work a demanding job, and this vacation is my chance to relax and recharge. My sister, who's 30, has 3 younger kids, and she reached out to me last week asking if I could babysit them for a few days while she and her boyfriend go on a weekend getaway. I politely explained to her that I've been looking forward to this vacation for a long time and that I really need this break. I told her I wouldn't be comfortable taking on the responsibility of looking after her kids during my time off. Well, my sister didn't take it well. She accused me of being selfish and uncaring, arguing that family should always be there for each other. She even guilt-tripped me, saying she never asks for favors and that I'm abandoning her in her time of need. I stood my ground and told her that while I do love my nieces and nephews, my vacation is crucial for my well-being, and I shouldn't have to sacrifice it for her last-minute request. Now the entire family is divided. Some are supporting me, recognizing the importance of self-care, while others are siding with my sister, claiming that I'm being heartless and should prioritize my family over personal desires. Am I the jerk for refusing to babysit my sister's kids during my long-awaited vacation? Or should I have put my plans aside to help her out? Not the jerk. Just like your sister would like a break, you would also like a break. The difference is you took the time to plan your vacation, and now your sister wants to use your planning to her benefit. This also isn't a time of need for her, it's just a time of want. To the family that believes you should be helping your sister, well, they can volunteer to babysit. If and when they let you know that you should have agreed to babysit, simply say, "Oh, I'll let sister know you feel that way, and you can probably babysit then, since you would prioritize family so you can make the time to help." Your sister doesn't need the same vacation time off as you. She just didn't do the work of coordinating time for herself. Am I the jerk for telling my husband I'll move back in once my stepdaughter and her family move out? I married my husband when his daughter, Trudy, was 22. She's now 36. He was 47 and I was 32. I have 2 kids who are 20 and 18 now. Both are away at college. Trudy never liked me, and that was fine. She has a mother, and she was a full adult living on her own when we met. Her parents had been divorced for 6 years when I met her father. We live in a city with lots of tourism, so it was an easy decision to keep my apartment and do short-term rentals when my kids and I moved in with my husband. We also used it for out-of-town guests. Trudy and her husband ran into some financial problems last year. Trudy and her family of 4 moved in with us. We agreed that after the holidays, I would stop taking reservations for my apartment and they could move in there. They would sign a lease and we would rent it to them without collecting rent so they could build up rental history and money. Trudy moved in last October and it was horrible. She doesn't help around the house and neither do her kids. Her husband is working his butt off to get money together for them, so he comes home exhausted, and he is more help than her or their kids. The 3 of them leave dirty dishes everywhere, dirty laundry everywhere. The house is just a mess. I've spoken to all of them, including my husband, about this. My son-in-law is the only one who makes an effort. Trudy literally said that I live in her father's house, so I don't get to tell her what to do. My husband did not back me up, so I moved out. My apartment is now empty since the holidays are over. I said I didn't want them treating my property like they were treating my husband's home. They're all mad at me for leaving and changing the plan. She actually threatened to sue me since they have a signed lease. I told her to go ahead since I would prove that I never got the agreed upon deposit or first or last month's rent, which we were going to cover to help them out. I've been here for a week now and it's great. No noise, no mess, a much better commute for me to work. My husband has been spending a few nights a week here with me. He wants me to come home and give them the apartment like we agreed. I said I would do that if we went back to his house that minute and it was in good shape. It was not. It was disgusting, like it smelled bad. It was like if 5 teenage boys were living there with no supervision. She saw me looking around in disgust and said that it wasn't her fault and that the mess was because they don't have their own living space. Yeah, sure. I turned around and went back to my place. I offered to let my husband move in with me if he wants them to have their own space. He won't because he's retired and likes where he is. So, like I said, they're all mad at me now. My husband, Trudy, her kids. Trudy's husband is the only one who understands my position. I will no longer agree to let them in my apartment, and I will only move back once they leave. Not the jerk. You're so obviously in the right here. It was generous of you to offer your apartment in the first place. Then she was untidy and rude in your home. And that BS about it being her dad's home? Did she not process that under the same logic, the apartment is your home? I get that divorced or remarried dads often have a bit of a guilt complex around their kids, especially daughters, but he's already doing all that he can. You can't expect to stay with people long term and be a burden on them with chores and housekeeping. It seems the son-in-law is totally understanding in the situation. I wonder if your husband can talk to your son-in-law about it. You could also show your husband the responses you inevitably get here. As a side note, I don't think son-in-law will stick around together with such a mismatch in how much work they do and general manners. He deserves better too. Am I the jerk for telling my brother-in-law to pay me $700 for the lost coat when I bought it for $100? Last year, I was at the mall with my fiance when I saw this awesome cashmere and wool coat. It was perfect in every way, and there was only one left in my size. The best news was that it was on clearance for $100, so I bought it without a second thought. I've worn it several times last year, but it hasn't been cold enough this year for me to break out the coat. Last week, when I saw the news about the upcoming cold front, I decided it was time to take it to the dry cleaners so that I can wear it this week. After tearing all of my closets apart without seeing it, I asked my fiance if she had seen it. She told me that she hadn't seen me wear it in a while, so she lent it to her brother to wear to a wedding. I was annoyed at hearing this, but decided not to make a big deal, so I simply told her to tell her brother to bring it back so I could get it dry cleaned. Thursday rolls around and he hasn't brought it back, so I asked her about it again. Nothing. Come Friday, and I haven't heard anything, so I called him. He said that he told my wife on Tuesday that he got drunk at the wedding and lost my coat. I was super annoyed at this, so I told him he owes that exact coat from the exact same brand. Last night, my fiance came home from work in a bad mood and handed me $100. She said that her brother dropped off the money and I shouldn't have made her brother pay for the coat since I knew he doesn't make very much and I haven't worn it but a handful of times. I looked at the $100 and I told her I wanted a replacement coat or the amount it currently cost so that I can buy a new one and that $100 won't cover it. She said he went to the store and it cost $700 now, but she knew I only paid $100 for it, so she told him $100 would cover the cost. I argued that $100 doesn't buy me a new coat. We went back and forth but couldn't find any common ground. She offered to throw in an extra $100 of her own money and said sarcastically that I'm coming out ahead. I argued that I'm still out of coat and nothing will satisfy my loss except for a replacement coat. She argued that I don't have to have the exact same coat and that I can buy a similar one with $200. She thought I was being ridiculous and called her parents on speakerphone. Of course, they sided with their kids, and her dad tried to say that a man shouldn't be so hung up on a coat. I told him that a man replaces what he loses. So now they're all mad at me for wanting to make a profit from their son and implying that he's not a man. Am I wrong for wanting the same coat as a replacement? Not the jerk. I don't see this as an attempt to make a profit. I see this as a man wanting his coat replaced. Just so happens the value of the coat went up. Brother-in-law needs to have some integrity and take personal responsibility. He borrowed the coat and he lost it. As a man, you pay your debts. Brother-in-law is a jerk for losing the coat, but it happens, and the manly, correct response is to replace it. Girlfriend is definitely a jerk for lending the coat out without talking to you about it first. Girlfriend is also a jerk for not being forthcoming with OP about brother-in-law losing the coat. Girlfriend is a major jerk for deciding how much brother-in-law should pay to replace the coat on her own without consulting OP. There are some red flags with your girlfriend that you should probably take into consideration. I mistakenly accused my boyfriend of cheating on me. Now he says he wants to break up. I've been in a relationship with my boyfriend for 2 years. Never had any real problems until now. He moved to a new job about 4 months ago and is being mentored into the job by a senior female employee. She calls him after work hours too to make sure that the work is on schedule and to inform him of various responsibilities of the next day. I've been okay with all of this until one day she called him around bedtime and asked him if he could pick her up in the morning because of some problems with her car. I found this unnecessary and told him not to do it. He said it was okay for one day and did pick her up in the morning. I argued with him in the evening and told him that I find her calling him outside of work to be uncomfortable. He rejected that and said she only says things about work, and as she mentors him, he can't just ask her to not call anymore. This has been going on for some time, but the breaking point came yesterday. One of my friends called me yesterday afternoon and told me that she saw my boyfriend eating lunch in a restaurant with another woman. She described the woman, and I was sure that it was the mentor. In my mind, I was almost sure that it was nothing, but still, when he came home, I exploded and screamed at him and accused him of cheating on me with her. I shouted over him for a good 30 minutes. When I calmed down, he looked livid and showed me a photo on his phone. It was a selfie of him and several of his colleagues having lunch, and it was just that he and the mentor took a smaller single table by the side of the extended one. I apologized a lot, but he said that he doesn't feel comfortable that I'm getting insecure over him working with a woman. This morning, he told me that he needed some space and went to his friend's house. He's not taking my calls anymore, and I want to go over to his friend's house to talk to him. How can I convince him that I know that I went overboard with my reaction? Update. I was distraught, and the opinions are understandably against me. I understand from reading many of them that I might be BPD. I'm planning to go to therapy and counseling. I've sent him a message saying this, and that he can take as much time as he wants, and that I would completely understand if he wants to break up. As for people asking why I screamed at him when I didn't think there was a problem, I really don't know. At that moment, I couldn't control myself, and all of the irritation I felt from her spending time with him must have come out. If he asked you to give him some space, give him some space. He left this morning, so wait at least a day until you try to contact him again. He might sort his thoughts out and come back to you. I just took a DNA test. Turns out I'm 100% not my dad's son. For as long as I can remember, my parents' marriage has been happy and stable. They were high school sweethearts, and my dad proposed to her at their senior prom, or so they say. Nowadays, they're your stereotypical old couple, just as in love as the day they married. For Thanksgiving, one of my friends bought DNA kits for our whole friend group. He's super into genealogy and family trees and wanted to share his hobby, I guess. I just got my results back, and my biological father was found. Except he's not the man who I grew up calling my dad. He's some random guy from New Jersey. He hasn't reached out to me, and I have no intention of reaching out to him. I have to admit, he does look like me, but he doesn't look like my sister at all. That means that either my sister is my dad's real daughter, or that my mom cheated multiple times. I do know that my dad's family has a history of fertility issues, and that his identical twin brother can't have kids at all. I don't want to blow up my parents' lives, and regardless of my DNA, my dad is still my dad. He raised me and loves me like his own, and that's all that matters to me. But there's a voice in the back of my mind telling me to tell him because my dad deserves to know that his wife cheated and that he raised another man's kid. But then, will he ever look at me the same? What if he disowns me out of rage? And what about my mom? She lives off his pension and home business. But she's a cheater, so maybe I shouldn't consider her feelings. I don't know. I had to tell someone, so I figured Reddit might be a good place. I'm going to think about what I should do for a while before taking any drastic action. I have the power to destroy my parents' lives, and I don't take that lightly. Update. So first off, I just want to say y'all were half right. Secondly, I wanted to explain in more depth why I didn't think it could be a donor. My family, my dad especially, hold honesty as one of their highest values. The angriest I've ever seen my dad was when I covered up a bad grade in school. My point is that lying is considered the greatest sin in my dad's eyes. He always told me that a man is only as good as his word. The thought of my dad keeping something like that from me was nearly unthinkable. I called my mom the other day and explained about the DNA test. She chuckled, and instead of confessing to cheating like I thought she would, or to using a donor like you guys thought she would, she said to me, "I guess we couldn't keep this forever. Okay, I guess it's time you knew," and then proceeded to tell me this absolutely wild story. She told me what I'd already guessed about my dad's fertility, that he's completely unable to have biological kids. Apparently, my parents didn't have the cash to pay for a donor or an adoption, but they wanted a kid more than anything in the world. What they agreed to do was for my mom to drive to the next state over and hook up with guys there in hopes to get pregnant. Apparently, she tried to choose guys who had similar features to my dad so that the extended family wouldn't get suspicious. Luckily for my parents, my sister came out looking like a clone of my mom. 3 years later, my parents did the same thing, and that's where I came from. As I said before, I look nothing like my dad. I do have some features from my mom's side of the family, but absolutely none from my dad's side. Other than that, I have lots of freckles, and so does my dad and a few of his relatives. Turns out, my biological father is also covered in freckles. I asked my mom if my sister knows, and she said that my sister doesn't know. My mom asked me for help telling my sister because my sister has been hinting that she wants a DNA test before having kids, which she wants to have soon. I agreed. I'll be going over to my sister's place to talk to her soon, and the current plan is to have my parents on Zoom. I don't think I'll be updating again, so get your "I told you so's" out of the way now. Am I the jerk for reminding my parents that my stepsister ruined our family's future? I grew up in a big blended family where we all consider ourselves siblings, and I consider my stepmom my mom. All of us kids are close except for one, my stepsister Leanna, fake name. My parents think it's just because she didn't grow up with the rest of us, but that it's fine, and it's not. Yes, by the time she came to live with us, she was almost 18, but it's not because of that. It's because she cost the rest of us our futures. See, when she came to live with us, she had been independently homeschooled. She was said to be very smart, but testing revealed that she only had about a 9th grade education and no transferable credits. Neither our school or the public school were willing to place her above 9th grade. Since she was only about a month from turning 18, this would mean she would be in high school until her 21st birthday and would more likely than not have to drop out anyway. The only other option was to have her get a GED. They were devastated, especially because she had an offer from family friends to get her into and through college if she did a specific program that she did have advanced education in. If she didn't graduate that year, they would question how bad it was and likely rescind the offer. The only other option was for her to get a GED, which would force the family friend to rescind the offer even if they still wanted to help, because she could never get accepted with a GED. My parents worried over this until someone they knew who was the admin of another private school offered to help out. They offered to enroll her as a senior and she could spend the year catching up, provided they saw it in their hearts to give a donation, of course. $100,000 later, she graduated from an accredited high school and moved on to college. My family's just normal middle class, so paying that meant the rest of us had to take out massive student loans, and my youngest siblings even had to switch to public school. My older brother got some help before this, but there wasn't a dime for the rest of us. My parents justify it by saying that they had to do it because it was their job to give all of their kids as close to an equal start to their lives as possible, and this was the only option to do that for her. My mom asked why we all have strained relationships with Leanna, and it finally came out that truthfully, we resent her for the huge financial load on us and the entire family that she caused. It's been 10 years, and she's never even tried to apologize or make amends, and it's grating. Now my father says that mom has fallen into a depression because nobody loves Leanna but her, and that we weren't a family despite everything she's ever done. We are a family, just not with Leanna. Are we really in the wrong? You're the jerk. I kept waiting for the point in the story where Leanna did something to you or your siblings to make you hate her. That point never came. Someone clearly did Leanna very wrong by homeschooling her rather than sending her to a real school, and it's really sad that your parents had to stump up so much money to rectify this damage. You said she graduated and moved on to college, so clearly she didn't waste away the money that your parents spent on her. I can understand how it feels unfair that this money was spent on her and you didn't get it, but realistically, all that it did was get her to the same place that you got anyway without it, and that's a high school diploma. They didn't pay for her college. Finally, it doesn't sound like your future has been destroyed because you went to college too, and if you really had massive loans, then your small share of that $100,000 would barely make a dent. Your resentment dripped from your post, and this is entirely misplaced. Grow up. Am I the jerk for staying in a marriage for 10 years to make sure I got alimony? My ex-husband, 35 male, and I, 29 female, had been married for 10 years. He was the only kid of an elderly couple. I've taken care of his mother for my entire marriage since she needed a caretaker. 5 years ago, I found out he was cheating. We had signed a prenup that said that we would leave with the assets we had come into the marriage with. I didn't have a full-time job because I had to take care of his mother. I didn't get a salary from my caretaking, but I spent my entire marriage taking care of her and her various health issues. It didn't have a clause against cheating. I spoke to a couple of lawyers, and they said that even if the prenup is thrown out, which it may or may not be depending on the judge, my husband has an inheritance from his father and can afford to bleed me dry in court. However, the prenup had a 10-year clause. I stayed for another 5 years. Some people choose to stay and reconcile. I chose to stay and make sure I didn't get done over. I filed for divorce after 10 years of marriage, and my husband was blindsided. The assets were split down the middle, and I was essentially compensated for the caretaking that I did. He's calling me cruel and calculating for what I did, He's also scrambling because there's no one left to take care of his mother. I told him to use his inheritance to actually buy her a caretaker that she can't take advantage of. I have a boyfriend, and I'm really happy with my life, but I still get messages from my ex-husband blaming me. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It looks like you got compensated for time served. I suppose a question for your husband is, was it also calculated when arranging meetups with his mistress because he knew his wife would be busy with his mother? Don't marry the boyfriend. Drain that alimony. Exactly. I divorced my ex after 16 years of marriage and 2 kids for many reasons, some of which are similar in terms of my sacrifices and his gains. A few years after divorce, I found out he also stole tens of thousands of dollars from the marital assets. I struggle financially due to delaying my own education and corporate climb, one of my sacrifices, while he's earned over 6 figures for 20 years because of my sacrifices and support. I have a boyfriend who also doesn't want to remarry, and we are very happy together. I'm eyeing the ex's social security income and won't remarry because I would become ineligible to receive it. Gotta play that long game. Divorced my ex after 13 years. Only worked part-time after our sons were born. Then worked years at jobs that paid under the table because that's what was available. Retired now and collecting half of his social security. Go for it. Neighbor goes full-on Karen after I kept her Amazon package that was delivered to my address. 2 weeks ago, Amazon dropped off a package on my doorstep. I left it there and I went to the store. When I came back, it was still there. I took it inside, called Amazon customer service. After being asked for and giving the associate the name, tracking number, and contents of said package, I was told that their policy was to either keep it or trash it. I kept a part of it, threw the rest away. Last night, the owner of the package knocked on my door loudly. I answered it, and she immediately accused me of stealing her stuff. I apologized and asked what was she talking about. I had completely forgotten about it at this point. She mentions that she had a camera in her car and it recorded Amazon dropping off the item. Plus, they take photos of the home number, and she was contemplating getting the police involved. I remembered the items and asked about the specific one. She confirmed it was hers, then went into a story about Amazon not replacing the items or refunding her money, and I apologized again and explained the situation, my actions, and what I was told by Amazon. And since I still had one part of her package, I gave it to her. She left after repeating her concerns and assumptions about our thievery. Today, literally 30 minutes ago, I learned that she previously took her complaints to the only neighbor that I know and am friendly with in the complex, bothering him at his job for over 10 minutes, calling my family thieves and threatening police action. So, am I the jerk for keeping and trashing someone else's property? Edit. The individual unit or apartment number was not on the package, just her name and the townhouse, condo, and complex address itself. There's no manager office, no lobby, no communal area, no communal mailbox. It's a townhouse/condo type situation. I also didn't know her before last night. I don't exactly speak to the neighbors, except for mainly one. Not the jerk. There was no communal area or leasing office to put it in per OP. 2. You called Amazon. 3. She waited 2 weeks. Clearly it wasn't that important to her. Not the jerk. It's amazing how few people in this sub understand how Amazon works. You aren't responsible to do their job. You have no duty to track down the actual recipient and get them the package. It's unlikely that the person who came to your door hadn't already received a refund or a new item and was just there to get the item you were told to keep. If she knew the item was at your place, which she clearly knew, why did she wait so long to knock on your door? As a former Amazon customer service rep, I'm going to say not the jerk. This is exactly Amazon's policy. If a package is delivered to the wrong address, the person is told that they should trash it or keep it. And when the person who should have received it calls, they'll be eligible for refund or replacement, depending on the product. The neighbor is full of it. Amazon took care of her. That's 100% company policy. They're not going to refuse to make it right when it's clear it was delivered to the wrong address. Also, the Amazon rep could see who it should have gone to, but is not allowed to tell OP to protect the original customer's privacy. The neighbor came after OP to try to get double what she ordered, the original and the replacement. Also, if she has it on camera, why did she wait 2 weeks to ask about it? OP did the right thing by calling Amazon about the mistaken delivery. It is unreasonable to expect someone in OP's situation to take responsibility for Amazon's error. The neighbor received a refund or replacement. That's their policy. Neighbor is the jerk here. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their neighbor? Please let us know. I can't even tell you how many times Amazon has delivered the wrong stuff to our house. We always take it to the house that it actually belongs to, but that's because we can see their address on it. Am I the jerk for wanting to talk to my daughter's new teacher about being nicer to the kids? My daughter's preschool hired a new teacher, or teacher's aide, who's in their early 20s, female, earlier this year. My daughter adores this teacher, and my wife, who is also a teacher, speaks highly of her. We just had a baby, so I've been taking care of drop-off and pickup lately, and I've been able to form my own opinion of this teacher. In my opinion, she messes with the kids too much. These are all examples that I've seen. For Christmas, we got every teacher a box of chocolates from a small shop near the school. The shop wrapped the boxes, and they have the name of the shop on the wrapping paper. Everyone knows what it is by looking at it. My daughter ran in yelling, "We got you chocolate," and the teacher said, "Abby, it was supposed to be a surprise." She still hugged my daughter and thanked her, but I felt that remark was unnecessary. Another time, I picked my daughter up towards the end of snack time. My daughter came up to the teacher and asked for more snacks. Teacher said, "Abby, you already ate all of our snacks. If I give you more, we won't have anything to eat tomorrow. You're about to go home and have dinner anyways." In my opinion, the first two sentences were very unnecessary. The last one just happened on Friday. Pickup ends at 4:30, and I'm guessing the teacher leaves at 4:45. I called the school and said that I was going to be late for pickup, and I got there at around 4:45. When I got there, my daughter was with a boy whose parents had been there for 20 minutes and he was refusing to leave. My daughter was getting her stuff, and I saw the teacher give the boy a spray bottle, a rag, and gloves and say, "Jack, if you want to stay, you're going to have to clean the tables, then vacuum. I have to go home, and your mom can't wait forever." She went to the closet, got her stuff, and started walking to the door. His mom also started to walk away. The boy dropped the cleaning supplies, started crying, and ran for his mom when the teacher made it to the door and his mom was out of sight. In my opinion, there had to have been a better way to get him to go than scaring him like that. I get that she's joking, but these kids are 3 and 4 and don't get it. My daughter has never admitted to this teacher making her upset, but I still don't like how she talks to my daughter or the other kids. My wife and I were talking about the school, and I said that I wanted to talk to the teacher about being nicer to my daughter and the other kids. My wife rolled her eyes at me and said that I'm starting to sound like a certain parent at her school that she and the other teachers can't stand, and that if I insist that everyone coddles our daughter, then she's going to have a hard time when she's older. Am I the jerk for not liking the teacher and wanting her to be nicer? You're the jerk. The teacher sounds perfectly nice, and correcting kids is part of her job. Wow. So this teacher, who's an expert on childcare, is helping guide children to be good little humans who have empathy towards others, making sure to save snacks for everyone else the next day and be helpful. What a monster. Instead of saying no to children's requests, she's telling them the answer is no and then gently redirecting them. And you think it's mean-spirited joking? Yet somehow your wife and your daughter love this teacher. You're the jerk, man, and it's clear it's your wife that does the bulk of the childcare. You wouldn't even know anything about this teacher if your wife hadn't been occupied with the birth of your new baby. Why don't you stop and think about that for a while? You're the jerk. You're making something out of nothing. You're making a big deal out of something kids can understand. Eat food today, there's none left tomorrow. You're close to dinner time. As far as the chocolate, that is overreaction. You give gifts. They're supposed to be a surprise. Relax. You're that parent every teacher hates. They have a hard enough job as it is. Yes, you're the jerk. Get some thicker skin. Your wife likes the teacher. Your kid likes the teacher. If she were mean to your daughter would feel that. You're not doing your kid or your wife any favors here. I offered to help my wife with the dishes, and she totally flipped out on me. My wife and I, who are both 26, both work 4 days a week. I work 12-hour shifts and she works 8-hour shifts. She would work more, but our daughter, who is 1, needs to be picked up from daycare. I leave for work before they wake up, and some days I don't get home until after our daughter has gone to bed. This week, our daughter's daycare provider was sick, so my wife took the week off of work to care for her. I worked an extra day to make up for her lost income, so it all worked out fine, or so I thought. She seemed stressed still, so I asked her what was wrong. She broke down, saying that she's struggling with balancing work, caring for our daughter throughout the week, and keeping our house clean and cooking, etc. I responded calmly by saying that I can't miss work or reduce hours, We simply cannot afford it. She responded by saying she knows that, but it's overwhelming for her and the house chores are piling up. I told her 90% of the problems with messiness could be solved if she picked up after herself, if she just put the used butter knives in the sink after she was done and rinsed bottles, cookware, etc. I'd be happy to do the dishes when I get home from work. I'll even put them away after. But I do not want to play scavenger hunt and look around the house for things to wash. She did not respond to me after I said that, other than a quiet okay before going to console our daughter who woke up early from her nap. She still seemed upset with me, so I vented to my coworker about what happened. He says I was being a jerk because I didn't even listen to what she wanted. I feel like I was perfectly reasonable. Am I the jerk? You're not the jerk for offering to help with the dishes. You're the jerk for telling her that 90% of the problems with messiness could be solved if she picked up after herself. Like, what were you thinking? Your title was misleading. Either you did that on purpose in a weak attempt to garner sympathy, or you are actually that dense. I suspect it's the former. Did you see where he answered about the chores he does at home? He takes out the garbage and does the dishes a couple times a week. He basically offered to continue doing what he already does, which is next to nothing. I'm sorry, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I wouldn't call dishes and trash household chores. That's less than the bare minimum to survive as a human being. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.